Good evening, seekers of the sanguine, and welcome to episode 21 of Hitchcock's Tales That Terrify, Shadows from the Master, on SL Tonight. Biting into the Master's curated cravings, linking his fears with stories that drained him. From Black House Sieges, we seduce the real thing, by Robert Specht, a 1957 vampire seduction from the anthology. A lonely man meets an alluring woman who captivates him, but her eternal youth hides a vampiric truth, feeding on victims' vitality in ironic exchanges. As he succumbs, the real thing, Twist, reveals immortality's curse. Specht's blend of desire and dread echoes Hitchcock's psychological lures. Hitchcock's Alfred Hitchcock Presents TV show, 1955 to 1965, adapted 270-plus stories, including vampire tales, with his witty intros adding irony. His personal phobias, guilt, isolation, shaped these, tying to the story's fatal allure. Taste the Night. Story Thirst. They took Charlie Atkinson and Tad Winters off to the madhouse on the same day. Charlie went quiet. Being a half-wit, one place to sleep was just as good as another to him. Not Tad, though. When they took him away, he was howling like a run-over dog. Every small town has its village idiot and its practical joker, and it seems that the first is always going to be made a fool of by the second. That was Charlie and Tad. Charlie never seemed to mind, though. No matter what kind of trick Tad played on him, he'd smile that fool smile of his and say, "That Tad's funny. He's sure funny." Charlie slept in a little room in the back of Mr. Adkins' funeral parlor. He kept the place neat and swept up once in a while. Mr. Akins let him do little chores like that so Charlie wouldn't feel like he was getting charity. Charlie liked his little room, not minding at all that most of the time there was somebody dead lying out in the parlor. Came April, though, the main water line that led into the town burst. Seepage turned the graveyard into pure mud, and until the water could be pumped out, Akins' funeral parlor had 3 people laid out and waiting to make the final trip. Charlie was forced to share his little room with the Dayton girl who died of pneumonia a few days before. As soon as Tad heard about it, he couldn't resist ribbing Charlie. "Here you got company, Charlie, is that right?" Charlie looked at him quizzically. "I mean that pretty little girl you got staying with you." "Shucks, Tad, that's the Dayton girl, you know that." Charlie looked around at Tad's cronies to see if they were smiling. Still wasn't sure if his leg was being pulled. "You mean she ain't your wife?" "Tad, that girl's dead. It couldn't be nobody's wife. You sure are a card, you are." Some of the fellows were ready to laugh, but Tad gave him a quick look that shut them up. He had an idea. "Charlie, you ever see that girl get up and wander around at night?" "Now I know you're fooling." "I ain't fooling you at all," Tad said darkly. "All I can tell you is you'd better make sure that lid's on tight." The faces around Charlie took on serious expressions. "Why should I better make sure?" he asked. "Talks around town that girl was bitten by a wolf before she died." Tad put his face close to Charlie's. "But not by no ordinary wolf. A werewolf. You know what that makes her, don't you?" "A vampire?" Charlie had got his legend mixed, but Tad let it go. "That's right. Sure enough, you're going to be asleep some night, and the next thing you know, that gal's teeth will be in your throat, sucking you dry as a bone." With that, Tad walked away with his friends, leaving Charlie to think about it alone. Later, Charlie asked Mr. Akins about vampires, and Mr. Akins told him all he knew. Before he could ask Charlie why he wanted to know, a customer came in and Akins forgot about him. It was too bad he did, because that same night Tad and his pals were gathered at the back of the funeral parlor outside of Charlie's room. A few of the merchants in town paid Charlie 50 cents a week to check their doors before he went to sleep, and that's what the group outside his room were waiting for him to do. Tad turned to Susan, the one girl among them. He was due to be married to her shortly, but the way her face made up that night, even Tad couldn't help but be a little frightened looking at it. Her eyes were ringed and black, and her lips were painted scarlet. The rest of her face was painted chalk white, except for some streaks of black that hollowed her cheek. "Dad, I don't like doing this," he whispered. "Now, honey, it's all in fun." "Yeah, but I don't like the idea of getting in that casket." You won't be in there but a few minutes until Charlie gets back. Like I said, we're going to put you in one of the Aikens keeps in the front room for a sample, and switch it with one in Charlie's room. When he comes back, you give out with a few moans, open the casket, and it's all a laugh. Suppose he gets a heart attack or something. Oh, he's too dumb for that. He'll let out a yell and hightail it for the county line. Be there in 2 minutes. Susan giggled. Shh, the voice said. It belonged to someone who was peering around the edge of the building towards the front. He's gone. Let's go. The group stole forward, and when Charlie disappeared up the street, they hurried through the unlocked door of the shop. A few minutes later, when Charlie returned, the men were once more waiting outside the back of the shop. Give me a boost, Tad said. With one man holding each of his legs, Tad was slowly raised until he could see into Charlie's room through a little transom-like window. He's coming in, Tad whispered to the men below. He's sitting down on the cot, taking his shoes off. Tad didn't have to report what happened next, for even from where they were, the moan that came from the wicker casket could be heard. Within the little room, Charlie sat bolt upright. Another moan issued from the casket, and Charlie gripped the edge of his cot. At the same time, Tad held on to the edge of the windowsill with one hand while he tried to stifle his laughter with the other. What's happening? The voice below him asked. Wait, he giggled. The casket's opening. She's coming up. God, she looks like the real thing. I think Charlie's got... He broke off as Charlie suddenly came to life. He moved swiftly, not for the door as Tad thought he would, straight for the casket. Susan, too, was surprised. Tad saw. She offered no resistance as in almost one motion Charlie sprang, pushed her back in the casket, and shoved the lid down on her. What's going on, Tad? Someone hissed. Tad was almost too amazed to answer. I don't know. He locked her in. Now he's getting something out from underneath his cot. Looks like, oh my god, no! The horror in his voice cut through the suppressed laughter of his friends. One of the men holding his leg shifted suddenly, and Tad fell to the ground, yelling. Before the men could untangle themselves, an unearthly shriek came from within Charlie's room, cutting through Tad's frantic cries and freezing everyone where he stood. It was the shriek of a woman in mortal agony, and it was followed by another, louder than the first. Tad scrambled to his feet and dashed around the building. When his friends caught up with him, he was already hurling himself against the heavy front door in a frenzy. One of the men kept his wits about him. Warning the others away, he picked up a chair that stood in front of the plate glass window and heaved it. Tad was the first one through when the glass stopped falling. The shrieks from Charlie's room had reached a peak. They died suddenly as the men reached his door. Tad was the first one in the room, and when he saw what he saw, forced a groan from him. The wicker casket still straddled the two sawhorses on which it had been placed only a few minutes before. Charlie stood before it with a mallet in his hand. A soft gurgling sound came from the casket, and the long wooden stake that had been driven through its woven fibers moved a little as the remains of the woman within shuddered once and then were still. Blood had begun to drip to the floor. Tad began to scream. Later on, after the authorities took Tad and Charlie away, everybody agreed it was Tad's fault. Everybody except Mr. Aikens. He stayed drunk for a week, saying that he was a damn fool who told Charlie that the way to kill a vampire was with a stake through its heart. And so bleeds the real thing, where desire drinks deep of doom, a biting irony of eternal cost. As its seduction turns fatal, it reflects Hitchcock's craft of hidden hunger. The TV show, running 10 seasons, featured adaptations like Blocks of Vampires, expanding anthologies to screen. Hitchcock's fears fueled his hosting persona, preserving his legacy. Did this bite linger? Comment next. Yeah, by all means, comment next. Please. Next, or anything you like. Next, Journey to the Death. Journey to Death by Donald E. Westlake. Also apparently known as Richard Stark, worked on a Parker series, so that's interesting. Looks to be good. And yes, I know these intros and outros are completely far-flung from what the actual story is, and that's kind of the point. This was inspired by the Twilight Zone. I am not the Twilight Zone. I am not the Outer Limits. These are stories brought to you from the Master. and I want you to have them as first rate, first class works of art for the first time, just as I did. And if that makes any damn sense whatsoever, then you're welcome. But on that note, feed carefully. Good night.
A kingdom of wood turning slowly to dust. The Harveys leave the city, leave the neon behind, for a 60-foot dream of a different kind. They called for a skipper, they called for a soul, to take the wanderer back in control. And then he stepped from the heat of the haze, with a patch on his eye and a permanent daze. He said if it's gonna happen, it'll happen out there, with a beer in his hand and the salt in his head. The ghost of the reef, the bringer of chaos, the master of grief. Through the voodoo of tides and the Caribbean sun, the engine is screaming, the voyage has begun. Spin the wheel round till the compass is gone. We're sailing the edge with the Captain Ron. Smuggler's Cove, through the mechanical heart that the captain drove. He taught them to sail by the seat of their pants, while the pirates of Cuba were leading the dance. A guerrilla patrol in the dead of the night, the wanderer flying, escaping the light.
The old man said while the storm colored in a bruised dark red. Look at the map, we don't need the chart. You sail with your eyes and you fight with your heart.
Left him at the dock where the water is blue, a legend in flip-flops, a captain so true. If we get lost, we'll just pull over. The ghost of the wanderer, Captain Ron.